Hi, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Ontario's controversial Bill 5 passed on Wednesday. The bill will create special economic zones where provincial and municipal laws can be suspended to speed up project approvals like mining in the Ring of Fire. The bill has drawn sharp opposition from First Nations, saying their rights and concerns are being ignored. After a short debate, the bill went to a vote. And despite yelling from the public gallery, Bill 5 passed easily. At one point, Conservative MPPs slapped their desks to drown out the noise from the gallery. Today is the final sitting at Queen's Park until September. Kiwetanong MPP Saul Mamakwa says some chiefs are saying the Ford government has awoken the sleeping giant.
I think it is time to stand up. It is time to rise. It is time to work together. When this government continues to disrespect, dishonor treaty rights, inherent rights, and Aboriginal title, these guys do not care.
Wildfires continue to spread across northern Ontario and the prairies, including Saskatchewan, forcing more people to flee their homes. 3 more communities are now seeking shelter in the southern part of that province. A mandatory evacuation of all non-essential and non-emergency staff has affected La Ronge, Lac La Ronge Indian Band, and Air Ronge. Embers from wildfires ignited a fire in downtown La Ronge, destroying the historic Robertson Trading Post, known for Indigenous art and artifacts. All areas within a 20-kilometer radius of La Ronge have been evacuated due to fire risk and wind gusts of over 85 kilometers an hour. Evacuees can visit the Saskatchewan Public Safety website for resources and more information. And discussions over prairie wildfires kept the House of Commons sitting until midnight Tuesday as opposition parties grilled the Liberal government during an emergency debate. They claimed it was not doing enough to help First Nations in northern Manitoba and Saskatchewan struggling to deal with devastating wildfires. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
Winnipeg NDP MP Leah Gazan opened the debate by saying the government is failing in its treaty obligations to First Nations people.
The Government of Canada is bound to respect its fiduciary duty of care and treaty obligations when working with Indigenous peoples. They are also obligated to uphold our Canadian Charter, specifically Article 7, Section 7 of the Canadian Charter that concerns rights to life, liberty, and security of the person. Mr. Speaker, this has not happened as evacuees have often been exposed to unsafe conditions.
Minister of Emergency Management Eleanor Olszewski and other Liberal MPs disputed Gazan's claims, saying the government has been in constant contact with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew and First Nations on the ground to provide the supports they need as the situation evolves. Indigenous Services Minister Mandy Galmasti said this includes covering evacuation costs.
The Emergency Management Assistance Program under Indigenous Services Canada also reimburses eligible costs related to wildfire response and recovery. This includes evacuation support and culturally sensitive services offered with wraparound on-site, taking into consideration mental health, traditional food, language interpretation, and childcare. I want to share that we have been delivering these in a collaborative way.
But Nunavut NDP MP Laurie Idlout said it's unclear whether First Nations are being provided with proper accommodation or the tools to fight the wildfires in their communities.
What will this government do to make sure the evacuees are properly housed, fed, and able to take care of each other? The federal government's role in wildfire protection with regard to Indigenous peoples include wildfire suppression on federal lands, also known as Indian reserves or military bases. We must be given an update as to whether this is occurring.
Rebecca Chartrand is the Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs. She's also the MP for the Northern Manitoba riding of Churchill-Kiiwetinoong-Aski, one of the hotspots of the fires. She said the Northern First Nations she talks to have been satisfied with the federal government's response.
I invite those questioning our government's response to actually speak to the people on the ground. Ask the elders who have been airlifted to safety. Ask the local leadership who's received daily updates, direct lines of communication, and who sent thank you messages for the support they are receiving from our government. Our response was rooted in safety first and respect for life.
APTN reached out to Indigenous Services Canada to get specific examples of some of the supports the department has been providing to First Nations during the current wildfires. In an emailed statement, the department says all eligible evacuation costs will be covered through the Emergency Management Assistance Program. First Nations can also apply for advance payments to cover costs, of which $2.4 million has been advanced as of May 30th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A Northern Ontario city is taking a step toward reconciliation with local Indigenous people through the creation of a new position. The city of Sault Ste. Marie has hired its first Indigenous policy advisor, who will be responsible for educating city staff and guiding the development of programs and services. APTN's Mike McDonald reports.
Caitlin Neveu never thought her professional path would lead to a career in municipal politics. The lifelong Sault Ste. Marie resident obtained her bachelor's degree in corrections and had her sights set on policing. She later opted for a career in the child welfare system before coming across an ad for an Indigenous policy advisor with the city of Sault Ste. Marie.
I'm born and raised here. I'm a wife, a mother, an auntie, a daughter. What brought me here is just the journey that I was made to go on, and I feel that being in this position, I'm able to utilize my voice for my people and utilize it in a really good way.
Neveu is an Anishinaabe and hopes to offer an Indigenous perspective to policy development at the municipal level.
A lot of my work is supporting the city of Sault Ste. Marie and encouraging the corporation to move forward in good ways to ensure that Indigenous policies are implemented and that our culture is respected in the way that it deserves to be.
The city of Thunder Bay employs an Indigenous relations manager who works closely with the city's Indigenous Advisory Council. Tanis Thompson is the current manager.
Some of the benefits is policy development for sure. You know, we ensure that Indigenous worldviews and cultural considerations are reflected in city planning and programming and service delivery, like I had indicated. Obviously, reconciliation and cultural safety training. So leading those internal discussions with staff and enhancing the understanding of Indigenous history and treaties and the importance of cultural safety.
Neveu will also be overseeing cultural competency training for city staff in Sault Ste. Marie.
Anybody that has to do with the city of Sault Ste. Marie will have to complete this onboarding cultural competency to understand, to be knowledgeable, and to respect in the way that needs to be respected. This cultural competency will be specific to Sault Ste. Marie and its area.
Neveu and Thompson say they hope municipalities across Canada will continue the trend of bringing in Indigenous advisors to assist in policy development. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Thanks, Mike. A brand new episode of APTN Investigates debuts this Saturday. We'll bring you a preview after the break. Welcome back. Every tattoo has a story, and for some, it can be a constant reminder of a traumatic past influenced by gangs and violence. This week on an all-new episode of APTN Investigates, video journalist Tamara Pimentel meets up with 3 women as they work on erasing painful chapters of their past. Here's a preview of Skin Deep.
Billy Kozub's face tells a story. Tattoos from a life forged in the streets. It's a constant reminder of a dark time filled with gang violence and addiction. A past she wants to erase.
Hi.
She makes frequent visits to Mother Inc.,
Good. How are you?
a tattoo removal project by Della Stanky, It's funded by the province of Manitoba and city of Winnipeg and provides free services to people exiting the gang life and violence, even bringing tattoo removals behind bars to inmates getting ready to be released.
How I got started, how I opened the business in the first place was I was working at 2 federal halfway houses here in Winnipeg. They started telling me that it was because of these tattoos that they weren't leaving the yard. They were scared to either get jumped back in by their old gang or get jumped by a rival gang.
Well, this is the one that's gang affiliated. Then these two, it says gangster on this one, and then women doing a drive-by. Getting these removed, it's kind of like shedding snakeskin. Like, I'm leaving that lifestyle behind, you know? And I know people say, you know, you're in till you're dead, or you're just, it's a commitment or whatever, like you're in for life and this and that, but no, you don't have to be.
Looks good. You can catch APTN Investigates Skin Deep, airing this Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. APTN as a network celebrated their 25th anniversary last year, and this year it was APTN National News' turn. APTN National News has come a long way since hitting the airwaves in 2000. Our guest host Karen Pugliese spoke with current and former APTNers and reminisced about the early days of APTN National News and how reporters and video journalists used to get stories into headquarters every week. Take a listen.
I had an idea on how to solve that problem. How do you get tape from Halifax or Vancouver or Toronto and get it to a central newsroom? And it was really looking for somebody that we could piggyback with. And so we had to piggyback with an established network, and that was CTV. We were lucky. We were really lucky that we were able to get that partnership going right off the bat. Otherwise, we would have been literally, you know, putting news tapes onto airplanes or trains or whatever.
That's what I had to do when I first started in Vancouver.
You did?
Yes. So my deadline wasn't the news deadline. My deadline was the FedEx deadline.
Wow.
So I'd quickly write up a paper script, and I was working at my aunt's a house when I first moved to Vancouver. And once I got a paper edit ready, I got the tapes, and we used SP tapes, or at least I did back in the day.
Yeah.
Put them in a FedEx box, jumped in the car, and rushed down to make the FedEx deadline, because it was around 3:15 Pacific time. I remember this, 3:50 Pacific. I had to make that deadline. So you get the tapes sent back to Winnipeg, and they assembled the story there. So there was no way to do daily news back in those days.
And the latest episode of In Focus and all our other APTN News podcasts are available wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also watch that one right now on our APTN News YouTube page. Now to one of this week's web poll questions. We're asking you, does the medical assistance in dying law align with your community's traditional beliefs? Yes, no, or unsure? You can go to our website, aptnnews.ca/polls to cast your ballot on this and our other questions this week. Time for one last quick break, and then we're sitting down with a Juno nominee. Stick around. Welcome back. Here's a look at your current conditions. 16 in Fredericton, sunny and 18 in Halifax. Smoky and 8 in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 6 in Nain. 24 with cloud in Montreal, smoky and 19 in Val-d'Or. 13 in Sault Ste. Marie, sun's out and 23 in Ottawa. Cloudy and 18 in Thunder Bay, smoky and 13 in Sioux Lookout. 11 for God's Lake and Norway House, smoky and 13 in Puckatawagan. 14 in Winnipeg, 13 in Dauphin. 17 in Regina and North Battleford, 16 in Saskatoon. 11 in La Ronge, 16 in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, cloudy and 23 in High Level, showers and 25 in Fort Chipewyan. 25 in Edmonton, 24 and sunny in Lethbridge. 28 with cloud in Kamloops, 20 in Vancouver. Showers and 20 in Prince George, 15 with rain in Dease Lake. 8 in Old Crow, 15 in Whitehorse. 17 in Yellowknife, 16 with showers in Norman Wells. 3 above in Sax Harbor, 7 in Pawlatuck. Sunny and 9 in Baker Lake, 6 under sunny skies in Arviette, 5 for Resolute and Arctic Bay. Our next guest was previously nominated for a Juno and is a Polaris Music Prize finalist. Anishinaabe musician Zune is a member of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation in Manitoba, and they've coined the term moccasin gaze for their take on the shoegaze genre. Zune will be performing at Cluster Festival in Winnipeg on June 8th, and we spoke with them earlier. Zune, thanks so much for taking some time here for us while you're in the city. Your story is one of impressive feats as a young person who started their journey making music with whatever you could find. What's it like to be recording with some inspiring indie acts in some of the most acclaimed studios?
Sometimes it feels like a dream. Like I'm like almost like above myself watching things happen. And that's why I take a lot of photos, just to remember that it actually happened. Because sometimes I get into like really deep dreams where I'm just like, did that happen? Or did that what happened exactly? But just from growing up and learning how to play music by myself, like my mom didn't understand what I was exactly doing. She didn't think I was taking it serious, but I taught myself how to play every instrument. And the way that I got into my very unique sound was just because my mom dated this guy who had a guitar tuner, and just one day I guess they broke up, and I ended up having to like just learn how to like be like bing bang 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 bang, and then I started to like learn how to like just do open tunings and be like, oh, this sounds really nice. And then my journey just went on where I just created this new genre called moccasin gaze, and then it just got the ears of like people like Lee Ronaldo from Sonic Youth, who helped like Nirvana like get mega famous, got signed to like David Geffen, and then recording in like Lou Reed's studio with like Steve Shelley and Laraji and just kind of all these like iconic figures that I had posters of that I never thought I'd ever meet have now just, text me things and stuff and FaceTime me, and it's all kind of surreal, but also I did work very, very, very hard, and there was a lot of times where I didn't think it was gonna work out, and then I just persevered and it all worked out in the end, I guess.
Hey, you didn't even mention Owen Pallett, who I absolutely love. That would have been pretty dang cool as well. You touched on moccasin gaze. The shoegaze genre has kind of made a huge comeback. When I was a boy, it was big, but I understand TikToks helped bring that back. Yeah. But I guess what brought you to that genre of music, and how would you describe moccasin gaze?
I moved from Vancouver to Ontario because my friend heard a demo of me with like a powwow drum with like an open tuning with like pop melodies, and he's like, dude, I've never heard anything like this before. He's like you're using the language but also like using traditional instruments. He's like, you should come to Toronto and like record this. Like this could be like something like really revolutionary. And I didn't know that it was gonna like take off in its way, but it was all just kind of like creator's like vision and journey for me, for like my mom to break up with this guy, learn the open tunings and like just figure it out like that, and then my journey back to my culture and finding the drum and then being able to like oh, I don't have a drum kit, like just use this, and combining both of them, I didn't know that it was gonna have like such a big impact. I knew that it was me coming closer to my culture because I had been gone from it for so long, just from going to racist schools like Happy Thought and stuff like that. That was like, it was something that I was almost planning but didn't really plan, and then it just kind of just blew up after when I put out my first album, Bleached Waves.
Nice. Well, you're playing Folk Festival this July with the outfit known as Omgizi. Want to tell us more about that project and what's coming up for them?
Yeah, I just, after my album Bleached Waves kind of blew up, I just started getting emails and messages and DMs from people, and one of them was this other Indigenous artist named Adam Sturgeon from this band called Status Non-Status. And his grandfather had to give up his status in order to go to the war. So that's why his band's called Status Non-Status. But we always felt in Ontario that there was just a lack of Indigenous music being displayed in a level where, say, other artists were like, I don't know, like Buffy Saint Marie was like being placed up, and we're like, oh, we feel like we're doing something even cooler and more authentic, no pun intended, but like, and we just decided, we were like, why don't we just start our own thing? Like, why are we always trying to reach to these like white folks for like help and stuff? Why don't we just start our own like Broken Social Scene? Because Broken Social Scene, Kevin Drew was like our kind of producer for that record, and it all started from like him telling us stories about them starting their own scene, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that was my idea before it even happened, because Kamloops, where they found all those unmarked graves, is when I first wrote this song called Ogin, which means mother. And I sent it to Adam, and I was like, well, why don't we get Kevin Drew to produce it, and we'll have like this like huge backing, this like well-known iconic band, and we'll just kickstart that, and then maybe that will draw on more attention to like this like alternative music, rather than where a lot of like granting facilities, they usually like to push the more friendly native narrative of like, oh, this is like very radio friendly, let's fund this, let's fund that. We're trying to like push against that, but like in a very positive way. We never swear in our songs, and if we feel like the loudness of our guitars is the kind of like the cry for help, which Ombigize means is like to make noise. And not in a way of like screaming, but more like kind of like talking to the creator, because that's what we do as babies, is like we cry when we need something. And I guess as adults, as in as musicians, our baby cry is like our music.
Must be nice to be able to reach out to Kevin Drew just to produce some songs for you. But Zuid, we'll have to leave it there. But congrats on all the success, and wishing you all the best here in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And that's all the time we have for your first look at the day's news. We'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Have a great afternoon.